Welcome back, everybody, to the Independent Voter Podcast. We got Sean still in cold Chicago over there. Is it still freezing or what?
Actually, you know what? We got weather in the 50s now, so it's not too bad. It's actually a
Yeah.
little surprising to be in February and get 50s, so it's not too bad.
Well, Cara left the East Coast and brought her weather with us to the West Coast, right?
I did. It's really beautiful here, though. I'm sitting in my best friend's house in Northern California and looking out at these beautiful redwood trees and just enjoying California so much, even though it is colder here this morning than it is in my hometown in Maine.
Yeah, I have to say your background, it looks like you're on like a Zen podcast or something with that beautiful ceiling and all that.
I like it.
Yeah, it looks good.
I want to go to your friend's house.
It's so beautiful here, and I just love Mill Valley. I lived here 25 years ago. My father lived in Mill Valley, and it's a really special place. It's a really special place in my heart.
We got a Ethan here again in front of the camera, making us all look old and bad.
Here I am. Well, you wanted the young energy, so I brought it. That's how it goes when you're on the podcast. So
all right. Well, I think last week we were saying what irks us, and now we'll play the what gives you energy theme
that's
today.
a good one.
I don't know. I enjoyed that last week's that gripe fest where we both all said like, "Here's what's bothering us so much." That was.
I would argue what bothers me
what,
is what gives me energy. So
I was just gonna say the same thing. If that's what gives you energy, then so be it. I don't know. We got a good list of things going on. As always, there's madness going on in politics, both nationally. Here in California, we got, I think, voter ID we're going to talk about today. The crazy California governor's race that's going on. We got some events coming out of Texas. I don't know, Cara, what should we get started on? I know that the voter ID thing's been something that's been big. There's an initiative going on in California. You got the SAVE Act on a national level. What's the latest?
I mean, Sean and I were talking about this before, that there's a real difference between the voter ID bill that's about to go on the ballot in California and then what the Republicans are pushing in the United States Congress. And what's being pushed in the Congress is that you're going to have to, in order to register to vote, if this bill passes the Senate, it already passed the House, you're going to have to show proof of citizenship when you go to register to vote, which means that you'll have to take your birth certificate with you or your passport with you. And this is a little bit problematic just because, there are tens of millions of people who don't sort of keep these things handy. And, particularly interesting to me is that if I were to bring my birth certificate to register to vote at my local place, it would have my maiden name on my birth certificate and not my married name. So those names wouldn't match. And so they're saying, well, then I would have to also bring my marriage certificate to show that my birth name changed from, my original name that I was born with to my married name. And so I'd have to bring my birth certificate and my marriage certificate in order to register to vote. And then what if I was married? I've only been married once, but what if I was married more than once? So then I have to bring another type of marriage certificate or a social security card. And the Republicans have been criticized for this. And what they're saying now is, are you saying that women aren't smart enough to gather all this documentation together and bring it? Like, women are smart. They should be able to figure this out. And, that going back to what irks me, this is a little bit irksome.
Well, you can barely get people to go to like the DMV and like get the documents together for that. Like, I don't want to be thinking about putting all the, if I buy a car, okay, I got to get my birth certificate and all this stuff to get the ownership of the vehicle. But voting should be, I feel like, easy. I feel like it should be streamlined. It should be,
Well, I mean, Chip Roy on Fox News had said, if this shouldn't be an issue for women because they could always swear on affidavit that, they are who they say they are based on based on the discrepancies between their birth certificate and their ID. But the thing is that that's already the law. Everyone has to swear on penalty of perjury that they are who they are and that they are a U.S. citizen. That is how it works right now. So if that is the fail-safe, then, we already have that in place.
But
Yeah, but I mean, I always end up playing devil's advocate here, but they're looking at, okay, there's places that have like DMV automatic voter registration, and anybody, a lot of the states, you don't have to be a legal citizen to get an ID, or you may not be qualified to vote. Maybe you have a felony, maybe for other reasons you can't vote, but they have automatic DMV registration. Those processes don't have an adequate verification process. I mean, that's what they're saying, is that, there's a lot of people on these voter rolls that they're finding that shouldn't be registered to vote.
But they're not necessarily here in this country illegally. There's a really, really small percentage of this. I'm just wondering if the reason why the Republicans are proposing this is to suppress the vote, or if it's just like, even if they think it won't pass, I mean, are they just doing it to get people worried that there are a whole bunch of illegal immigrants voting in elections, and to get people worried, like, if the Democrats win in a landslide, are the Republicans going to say somehow that that's cheating?
Well, I mean, that they already have people worried about that. That's part of what's at the core of this, right? So, I mean, the question is it overreach? And leave it to the Republicans and the Democrats. They always do overreach, right? What is interesting, we brought it up, is that you have this bill in California that was very carefully drafted, and it is a very reasonable voter ID bill, which goes to the I mean, Cara, you had this discussion last week about what irks you on like the stock trading issue, right? 90% of people want to deal with this, and you may want to deal with it even because you don't believe there's a lot of illegal votes being cast, but you want to put that issue to rest. Like, stop arguing that we
Yes.
can't, right? Let's just make it like, get rid of these arguments that we can't trust our elections. And so how do we do that? What is the question? So, like I said, I end up being the devil's advocate, but there's an argument to be made. Then why doesn't a Democrat come up and put up a voter ID legislation from the Democrat side, say, here, if we want to do this, here's how to do it, and call the Republicans bluff?
Well, I was going to say that's exactly the discourse that already exists online. If you look under these issues, it's all about, well, if nothing's going on that's wrong, why wouldn't they just allow these voter ID bills to pass? Whether that's actually like logically correct is a matter of debate. But
to Cara's point, why won't they let them pass? Because, they go and they overreach, and they add stuff to the bill that doesn't need to be there. But that begs the question, then why aren't they up there? And why doesn't some Democrat say, you know what? Yeah, we should. Here's how we can do it. Here, certainly we can do it. If you're telling me that at this day and age, we are not able to have any kind of verification process on our elections, then I don't know. I don't think that's a very reasonable position.
Well,
but why
you
don't
do have Democrats like Fetterman, right, who'll call on Fox News and say that he supports voter ID. And the problem that the Democratic Party has right now is they're so about institutional homogeny. They're so that everyone has to be the same, right? Everyone has to, if we're against voter ID, then everyone has to fall in line with that. And so people like Fetterman end up getting ostracized when he goes up on Fox News and says, hey, I don't see a problem with people having to show photo ID at a polling place. Now, what they don't talk about is the proof of citizenship part of that bill. And so to the point, I don't see any reason why we can't have clean legislation that is just voter ID. And then you put it on the Democrats to explain to their members, to their voters, most of whom do support voter ID or don't have a problem with it, why they won't just support a clean voter ID bill. No.
And then in the background is like, in the background of my mind is like, why are they trying to do this? Even if they know it's not going to pass. And it's just like with the stock trading ban. They don't care if it passes or not. They're trying to use all these issues in order to, pit us against one another and divide
Well, it's good for
country.
fundraising too. It's great for
Of
fundraising.
course, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
that's what they do.
That's what they do. They.
Including Democrats. I'm not saying they, Republicans, the Democrats do the exact same thing. Right?
Yeah.
So, but if I can also ruffle some feathers, right? Then a lot of the question comes up, well, then why don't we just have like a national ID and send everybody a free ID and stuff, which was going to get
A national
I can already
ID?
see
I
the
mean, we have
hair
passports,
on the
right?
back of my libertarian friends go,
Yeah.
are you serious?
Well,
You know,
Yeah.
it's so
yeah.
because like this whole debate has really squared the states' rights issues with people. All of a sudden, you have Democrats saying, "Oh, well, we've always supported this being a states' rights thing," where you have Republicans now trying to nationalize it. So it's so
Yeah.
funny that, but even the author of the Make Elections Great Again Act said that government issued ID for voters should be subsidized by the government. They should be free. If we're going to require it, it should be free for
Wow.
voters.
I mean, that
Which-
is crazy.
Mm.
That a Republican would be for national voter for like a national list where we
Well,
all
I
have
think
to
you're saying
register.
subsidize the state. You could have the state provides the ID, but
Right.
the federal government subsidizes it, right? So there you don't have you have a state ID, not a national ID. But then it goes, okay, well then how does the national, brings up new issues. But the point is, like, these issues could be resolved if they just work together for 2 seconds, right?
Totally.
Right.
But all right, we got something. What's next, Cara?
Well, we're going to talk about CBS and our favorite comedian Stephen Colbert, who I don't know if you guys remember the article.
You just loaded your favorite. You said we're our favorite. Don't assume our preferences.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't even watch late night TV. I don't.
Well, to date myself, my favorite is always going to be David Letterman. I miss
Oh,
David
yeah,
Letterman.
of
I
course.
just love that guy.
Can we just go back? I don't know. Jay Leno's pretty good too.
Yeah, but
Like Jay Leno's Garage. I watched Jay Leno's Garage.
do you even know who David Letterman is, Ethan?
Yeah, I know who David Letterman is.
Okay, good.
For sure.
Good. So anyway, Stephen Colbert, he's only on the air for a little while longer. His show got canceled by CBS, but he tried to have James Tallarico
By the Ellisons.
By the Ellisons.
Let's just knock that one out of,
Yes.
Yes.
So there's this incredibly charismatic Democrat called James Tallarico who's running for United States Senate in Texas, and he is, quite interesting. And Colbert wanted to have him on the show, and CBS tried to block Colbert from having this politician Tallarico on the show. And he ended up airing the interview itself on his YouTube and on his TikTok to kind of get around the FCC. But how interesting that CBS is sort of censoring, I guess, who's on TV.
Yeah, was that CBS or the FCC?
It was CBS worried that
it's their
and they actually walked it back recently, and they said, no, we didn't tell him what he can or can't do. We just gave him legal advice.
Right.
Yeah.
So our lawyers advised them on this.
Yes.
Yeah, but if I'm Stephen Colbert and I want to get attention, that's what I'm gonna say. Oh, they told me not to, and go and make a thing, and then you have podcasts like ours talking about him,
He was told, so Stephen Colbert said, quote, "We were told in no uncertain terms by our network's lawyers who called us directly that we could not have him on the broadcast." He said that he was told that he couldn't even mention that he wasn't able to bring the politician on the show. And CBS, they don't respond to requests for comment, of course. And, my favorite thing that Colbert said was directly to the agencies, to the FCC's chairman, Brendan Carr. He said, "Sir, you're chairman of the FCC, so FCC you."
Yes.
Can I take maybe
I
I don't know if it's unpopular, maybe it is opinion, but on this whole situation, like, can't multiple things be true? Like, one, can Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel have become more partisan, for a Republican would say, partisan hacks on late night TV? I mean, Jimmy Kimmel's hosting a fundraiser, a very expensive fundraiser for Democrats, right? Okay, you can find him funny, but then also hold the position that, like, okay, so, right?
Well, what's the equivalent Republican hack? Then?
Right. Well, and this
they're liberal hacks because
what do you mean? Greg Gutfeld?
Yeah, I mean they're all over the place, right?
Greg Gutfeld, and I'm not even saying even saying hacking like the pejorative sense. I guess maybe it's by definition a pejorative, but I'm saying like they're overtly partisan. Okay, they are not. Right. They're overtly partisan. Greg Gutfeld is pretty overtly partisan on the other spectrum, and say, so what? Like, what's the answer to it? Is to have the FCC come and do some regulation where, like, the Commission on Presidential Debates that basically
yeah, I mean, I would say that is just absolutely not the solution.
Right.
Like that's never going to work.
All this is based on that FCC regulation about fair time, fair use. And so
right, and you can picture like some guy from the government like with a stopwatch on the side
Well, there used to be, and there still is. So the FCC has only said that they're considering doing this, or the FCC chair is only considering removing the exemption for talk shows when it comes to the fair equal times rule. But what's funny about that is that the fair time or fair whatever, that rule doesn't apply to independents. It doesn't apply to people outside the major parties. They don't get time, right? And if you think about someone like Colbert, who is supposed to have his finger on the pulse of what's going on in society and the United States, he would understand that people are rightfully frustrated with the state of the two-party system. So why isn't he bringing on independents, people who want to challenge the status quo instead of these very partisan people? Like, let's be honest, that Kennedy in Texas is he's playing to the very far left of his party right now. So
and then what's next? Okay, well, New York Times, you just published an article about this candidate. Now you need to publish one. Oh no, you published a positive article about this. Now you have to publish an. There's no end to the evening out.
What about the First Amendment, Chad? What about just
that's my point. There's no
It's just crazy to me. Like what I think is that it seems like they're trying to stop anyone from saying anything bad about President Trump on television. They're trying to silence like people from saying bad things about Trump because Trump is, the guy always is watching television, right? We know this. This is what he spends a huge amount of his time during the day doing. And so they're trying to, and we know that he's suing media organizations. And anyway, is this America? Like, what is going on?
It is apparently America. It is America. And I think another, like, zooming out a second here, like, what's interesting is, he ended up posting it on YouTube and TikTok anyways. So if anything, the FCC is just accelerating the decline of traditional media, which may also be in Trump's interest. I'm not saying that that's, if they're thinking about the strategy here, like, let's continue to push people offline online instead of on cable networks where the stream of information and facts is basically there's no basis for what people believe these days.
Well, so and ultimately that does serve a party agenda, because then you are separating people into these echo chambers where they'll go specifically to Colbert for all their information, or they'll go specifically to whatever conservative Fox News host might have a podcast online. They'll go specifically there. So it's only further, isolating and these echo chambers away from each other. So people only get the news that they want to get. So it serves the party's interest for this to happen.
But also, it's Trump too, you guys. It's Trump saying basically,
it's always about
I'm
Trump,
telling you that what he is saying is that 97% of these broadcast networks are against me. This is a quote from him. They give me only bad press. They're getting a license. I think maybe their license should be taken away and it will be up to Brendan Carr. That's the president's words from Air Force One.
Can we also, I'm going to get so much trouble for saying, like, can he be right and wrong at the same time? I mean, remember, Russiagate wasn't that long ago. They did try to impeach the guy on a conspiracy, which is what it was, that all the major networks carried. They carried the water on something demonstrably false, defamed him, tried to take down his president. So can't that be true and also be true that Trump's position about
he's been talking fake news since before that investigation.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, that's one of his main talking points is that the news is all fake. We can't trust them. The mainstream media controls the narrative. So, I mean, to say that because the mainstream media covered an active federal investigation into a former sitting president, and that's somehow they should have their licenses taken away for covering that story. I mean, that just, come on, like that doesn't make any sense.
He's going to say there's a lot more than just that story, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my point is also saying, can't he also be wrong that, okay, that's to Kara's point, it's the First Amendment, and he's not, He's
If
not a
anything,
dictator.
I mean,
he's a president, and so deal with it. You're the president. You're going to get bad press. You're going to have people that have different opinions, and you know what? Sometimes there's going to be news stories that turn out to be false. Deal with it. That's life.
Yeah, and if
that's the First Amendment.
If he wants the news to be fair, why don't we appoint an independent sitting committee of FCC regulators who can go in and
independent committees are like ethics commissions, right? They're all, they
Okay.
Cara knows this. I love the ethics commissions who are all appointed by the most unethical people, and then
they're partisan, Ethan.
Maybe
That's
I'm
the
too
thing
cynical.
is that it's like the Republicans get to choose 3 and the Democrats get to choose 3, for example, and then maybe they'll have like one little token independent that's on there who's really like appointed by a Democrat or Republican.
You look at something like the FEC, right? The Federal Elections Commission, which right now is inoperable anyways because it doesn't have enough members on it to be operative. But even before, it was even Republican, even Democrat. And no matter what issue came before them, what campaign finance problem, what election violation came before them, there was hardly ever an investigation, and there sure was never any accountability or prosecution or follow-up to it. So yeah, I mean these committees, they're kind of a joke. So
it's also dysfunctional right now. I think Sean, didn't you write something about how the Federal Election Commission right now? So this is the commission that regulates all the campaign finance on the federal side.
Yeah.
For our government and for us. I think that there's maybe like 4 empty seats.
Well, so last year I wrote a detailed piece on the FEC and what's going on and why nothing ever gets done with it. And at the time, and I still believe this is the case, I don't believe Trump has appointed any new FEC members to actually give it quorum to operate. So now
they have no quorum. So the super PACs are going wild, and God only knows. It's like the Wild West, and we have no regulation and no regulators, which is really
that's why organizations.
I like the Wild West.
Yeah, that's why organizations.
I like Westerns.
Like American Promise and these organizations who I'll be talking to in later about why they want an amendment to make sure that the Congress and the states can pass their own campaign finance regulations, and so they can enforce them when these violations happen, instead of relying on some committee in Washington that can't even operate anyway.
Yeah. So wrapping this segment up, I want to talk next about Texas open primaries. Sean, can you tell us, these elections are happening right now. So speaking of James Tallarico, they are having open primaries in Texas right now. The early voting, I guess, is starting this week.
Yeah, it's already started. Yeah, it's
already started.
It's already started this week, and so Texas holds what we refer to as semi-open, or actually no, it's fully open partisan primaries, where any voter can go in on primary election day and choose a party ballot of their choice between the Republican and Democratic parties, and they don't register people by party. So on primary election day, you go up, you pick between the Republican and Democratic primaries. Now, the Republican Party there is trying to change this. They voted in their own party committee to close their primaries, although the state law doesn't currently allow that. State law requires there to be open primaries. And so now there is a court case. The Republican Party has tried to sue their own Republican Secretary of State to find this open primaries law unconstitutional, which no court has ever found open primaries law like this to be unconstitutional, even when the Republican Attorney General, whose job it is to defend the state in court, is not doing it and is siding with the party on this. Which
I love this because it just puts the hypocrisy like on bright display.
Mm-hmm.
So from a legal perspective, why is there no problem with Texas's open primary? Because you don't register with a party, right? Which is
open as can be.
Isn't that a more Republican position? Why do I need to tell the state my private association, right? And so that right of association doesn't come in conflict with the state system of having open primaries, right? The reason why California's old primary got closed was because the Democratic Party sued.
Right.
And then the Republican Party joined them and argued alongside them to say, the state of California requires us to register with a party and then has open primaries, and that conflicts the private right of association of the parties with the voter. And then subsequently, California went and said, well, fine, we'll just have nonpartisan primaries.
I mean, you have to wonder if the Republican Party even wants to register, voters by party when we see highly respected institutions like L2 Data come out with voter files that show there are actually more Democrats in Texas than there are Republicans. And the thing that's making the difference in these statewide elections, and who will likely make difference this year with this highly watched and contested Senate race that we're seeing, where Democrats are looking to trying to flip Texas, is independents will end up making a difference in that. And they'll see that when they start registering, if they start registering voters by party, that you have 2 to 3 million independent voters in Texas who are swaying these elections every time. And so the Republican Party has been getting by on independent votes, but what happens when those independent voters swing the other way? So I don't think the Republican Party even wants to have those numbers, on the books.
From a pure strategist perspective, they only need to look to how stupid this position is. It's to California. There's a reason why Republicans are essentially irrelevant in California. Is we have a presidential primary that is still partisan, but it's semi-open. It's semi-closed. The Republicans choose to close it, and the Democrats choose to open it, right? So you have all these independent voters that go, well, if I'm going to participate in the primary, I have to vote in the Democratic Party. What do you think that does to a voter's loyalty, right? They go, well, this party doesn't even want me to participate in their primary. There is a natural it's a natural consequence of the system is that over time, voters have become more loyal to the Democratic Party, even if they're not Democrats, because the Republican Party in California said, I don't want you. I don't want your opinion. You just wait it out and wait for us to pick somebody, right, among us, and then we'll let you decide on who you get a vote for. And then over time, they wonder why they're irrelevant in California. That's the exact same mentality that the AG in Texas is taking now, that, you know what? If you don't think you can lose Texas, that's a really good way to do it.
And, they may end up learning from their neighbors in Oklahoma, where there's a nonpartisan primary initiative that's going to be on the ballot, likely going to be on the ballot in November. And if that passes, so here's the thing about what's happening in Oklahoma. Oklahoma has closed primaries. And so, or they have a semi-closed system like California. And this year, all the parties elected not to let independents vote. And so what do independent voters do when they get to the ballot in November, when they see this initiative that says that the primaries can be open for all candidates and voters, you could participate? Of course they're going to vote for it. So I have to imagine that, if it's successful, Texas can learn a thing or two from their neighbor. So
yeah, but I do have to say that I am glad, even if I don't agree with what's happening in all the different states, I do totally support with my whole heart that the states should be able to decide what the elections are going to be in their state. So I'm totally against this, federal election, this this nationalization of elections concept, where, the Congress will get to sort of decide the rules for the states. The states have to be able to decide the rules for their own elections. And I think that's, what part of the Constitution says that, Chad? Is it Article 1?
Article 1, time, place, manner belongs to the states, right? And there can be a debate about whether, right? There's debates about Congress's, if they can go and, have the authority. But I mean, it's pretty clear precedent and a long-standing precedent, and it's been like a pinnacle of constitutional.
I was going to say, I think it's the part that I learned in like 5th grade or something.
Well, I mean, it's what makes America's political system so unique, is this idea of feudalism, right? You have not feudalism, of federalism. Yeah, feudalism.
It might feel like feudalism.
I was going to say, did we even tell the difference anymore?
Yeah, well, no, but so you have a centralized federal government that runs their election or runs their government a certain way, but then that is the republic side of our of our government, but then you also have a constitutional democracy where every single state, the people of those states, can decide how they want to govern in their own elections for themselves. So
It's
that's the
wonderful.
way that our election system was designed, and it makes
Yes.
us very unique.
Yes, and that's why in Maine we can have ranked choice voting, which brings us to our next topic, which Ethan wanted to talk about, which is that ranked choice voting, which is being
Oh, yeah.
used by the NFL.
Yes, so the Associated Press actually technically they have like a board that votes for the NFL MVP every year, and in 2022 they transitioned their voting system to a ranked choice voting system, and in the first couple years of that, it was pretty much a complete landslide for whoever won. But this year it came extremely close. There's 50 votes, and it ended up being decided by just one vote. And so if you had tallied it up, if just one vote had flipped, it would have been decided by the second place runoff system with ranked choice voting, which I know, Cara, your kids would be very happy about because it would have been the Patriots quarterback that won because of that. But
yeah, the Oscars have done this too.
Yeah, I was going to say that for years they've used ranked choice voting in their selection of winners.
And I think if any type of big award ends up being decided by that system, it'll bring a lot of attention to it, which I think it could be good. We could.
Yeah, you were talking about what brings us energy, something that brings a bit more positivity. We're seeing in Virginia, the House of Delegates just passed a expansion of their local options bill for ranked choice voting.
Good job,
right now
Virginia.
in Virginia,
Good job, Virginia.
In Virginia right now, cities and counties can adopt ranked choice voting only for council and county board elections.
Yeah, but isn't there a right and a wrong way to do ranked choice voting? I just gotta. I can't. There's no easy conversations here.
But so the whole point, the whole reason why this bill is great is so you can have these cities and counties decide if they want to use ranked choice voting and what kind of ranked choice voting they want to use. Like Charlottesville uses a very unique type of ranked choice voting, where instead of having an elimination round, if you have a candidate with excess amount of votes, let's say they get over 50%, then those excess votes are then distributed to the rest to decide who else might win under a proportional system, right? So in a multi-seat winner system.
Does that satisfy the one person, one vote?
Yes, it's proportional representation.
Well, so it's single transferable vote. So those votes those excess votes for the winner, the first place winner, don't count. And so they move over to their second choice. And that is the single vote that transfers over.
The craziest part about ranked choice voting and single transferable vote and proportional representation and all of this is that when we try to explain it, it's so hard to explain, but then it's why is it so hard to explain, Sean?
Well, for voters, they don't really need to know
exactly.
how the technicalities about it works. All they have to do is rank options, and that's
right. They just have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like easy peasy. But
Yeah, but I mean, I'm the first one to say we argue too much. Us reformers argue too much in a corner without nobody's paying attention and stuff. But I also think that this is issues that need to be talked about within the reform community, because I was pointing out there's wrong ways, there's right ways to do it. So proportional representations with one, which I admit I need to actually learn more and look at other ways and stuff to do it. But I can tell you right off the bat, I think there's wrong ways to do it in my eyes. Is my fundamental principle is always, does every voter treated the same? And I believe that the building blocks of democracy are people, not political parties.
Right.
So you could take a proportional system, which a lot of them are, that are partisan based, right? Where you're splitting up districts and representation based on the party, right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, well, this party got 10%, and now the party gets to elect somebody. Well, what about independent, right? So I'm not saying that there's not great proportional systems that we could do, but I'm just saying I think there's proportional systems that could set us back, which requires then having the conversation among us and having some principles that serve as the bedrock of how we do this.
And to your point, I do think we do need to have honest conversations about the limitations of even the reforms that we support, like ranked choice voting. Say we have ranked choice voting in this very crowded California governor's field, right? There's so many candidates To expect people to rank all of them might be too much, but also at a certain point, you get to a point where ranking kind of dilutes the power of the individual vote anyway. So,
but what's the purpose? I mean, the stated purpose, this is an important discussion in California, right? The stated purpose in California is not like it is in most states where it's to elect a nominee of the political party.
Right.
It's to winnow the candidate field,
Yes.
right? So to your point, Sean, you can have not a ranking system like they do in Alaska and just simply advance more people, right? You could advance 4 or 5 candidates.
Perfect.
No problem. Right. And you change nothing. The administration doesn't change, not the experience for the voter doesn't change. Literally nothing changes at the primary except you advance more people, and you don't have these totally random results that are going to happen in California simply by virtue of the composition of who decided to run.
That's right. Yeah. This is really what we should work on. We should work on opening up the California system to be a top 4, top 5 system instead of a top 2. I think it would serve everyone so well here. And this state is just already on the forefront, already so creative, already so engaged, and so many people running for governor. That's a wonderful thing when you have all these people running for governor, right? This is great.
Well, one of my concerns, one of my concerns right now, and we already see the major parties have already been looking for ways to get rid of nonpartisan primaries in California. They've tried it times, and they tried it in courts. They're looking for ways now. There was speculation that they would try to use voter ID to do this. And now when you look ahead at this crowded field, you have to imagine if somehow 2 Republicans get into the general election, that is going to be the target for the Democratic Party, is that we got to get rid of this top 2 system, not expand it, right? They're just get rid of nonpartisan primaries.
Oh, I'm sure they want to get rid of it, but
concern,
they would have a lot of Californians that would be very upset if they were going to try to do this.
Okay, but 2 things. One, I actually don't think 2 Republicans advance. I'll eat my words.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll eat my words, but I doubt that's going to happen. But look what they did on Prop 50, right? People are 85-90% predisposed to want to have redistricting, and then you have the megaphone and you frame it, and then I don't know how many legislators should tell me off the record, basically I'm being forced to go and support this. I don't really like it, blah blah blah. But the power of the national party interest, the national media, the national megaphone, and all that stuff. Look, Prop 50 passed like easily.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
People literally went to the polls and said, yeah, let the parties draw the district instead of the voters. That's what happened.
Did you see what Ethan put on Facebook? Our Facebook on Independent Voter this week has a clip of President Obama, right, Ethan?
Yeah, it was a clip of Obama, and essentially he says, I don't think that we should allow politicians to be drawing the lines around the voters. And then he goes on and he says, well, but I think what Governor Newsom did was the right move.
Right.
I think
he was an ads. He was an ads for Prop 50. So
right. Yeah. Which is exactly what the so all the folks who say, okay, well, I love Obama. He doesn't play the part. I wish we had a It's exactly what Donald Trump would say.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what the Republicans say. Well, I don't think the Democrats in Illinois should have gerrymandered the heck out of Illinois, right? So we're going to do it in Texas.
Yes.
They're both saying the same thing.
Right.
They're actually on the same side, because the only way to say if you really believe it is to draw a line and say we're not going to do it, and we don't do it, and we're going to push. And we're going to push to pass things that make it so you can't do it. And why is that possible? Because 85% of the electorate supports that position.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to win voters to your party. You're going to win voters to your cause. You're going to get them passed by supporting it. The only reason you don't, and you say, well, but we need to do it in our state, is because you want to continue the partisan game. And so I'm not an Obama basher.
I was going to say, what do we talk about all the time? How polarized everyone is.
Yeah.
What's winning these big issues is the blame game, right? It wasn't us.
When are Democrats?
We got to do.
So when are Democrats going to stand up and say Obama's wrong?
Right.
Newsom's wrong.
Well, and then, so like part of
Don't
Prop
hold
50,
your
one of the
breath.
selling points was in Prop 50, while getting rid of an independent map, said that we support independent maps on a national level. But you haven't heard much about that since. And even like you look at a bill like Kevin Kiley, where Kevin Kiley, a Republican in California, had introduced a bill that would have forbidden mid-cycle gerrymandering completely. You didn't see any Democrats get behind it. You didn't see any Republicans get behind it either.
Right.
But neither side got behind it. But so if you're going to say these things, if you're going to say you support independent redistricting, then back it up. But they won't.
Talking about both the parties saying the same things. Like I sent you that CNN clip about how they were discussing, both Republicans can move on to the primary.
Yeah.
Then I went on TikTok like 2 hours later, pops up Tom Hilton, and he's like, Republicans, we need to consolidate, because if we split the vote between me and Chad Bianco, then we're gonna have 2 Democrats in the primary. So it's like they're both saying the exact same thing.
Well,
I'm missing the English accent.
There's nothing that prevents the parties from holding their own sort of whatever nomination process, whatever they want to outside of the primary, to decide which candidates they want to.
Yeah, but they want to have their private rights, and then also have the state enforce their private rights, right? Which that's the big small government position, right?
Right.
It totally reminds me of something that our dear Peter Ackerman used to say. He used to say that the Democrats and Republicans are fighting in front of the veil. But behind the veil, they're having, hot, steamy relations. So, like in front of the veil for all of us to see, it looks like they're fighting. But behind the veil, they're in love with one another, which kind of brings me to the last thing I want to talk about today, which has to do with Gallup. And Gallup, as everybody knows, is a long-standing pollster. Frank Newport, I think, is the name of the man who runs it. And they are a very, very popular, well-known polling firm, independent. And they have always done horse race polling. So for the presidential election, they do polls and they say who's ahead, who's behind. And they also have done these presidential approval rating polls. And so a couple of years ago, they decided they were going to discontinue all their horse race polling. So that's pretty weird. But this week, they said they're going to get rid of their presidential approval rating polls, which they've done for like 50 years. And this seems kind of drastic to me. Is it because President Trump's approval ratings are so low that they just decided to stop measuring it? Like, what do you think is the reason why this would be happening?
I don't think it's that, because we've seen presidents with incredibly low approval ratings. Biden at times had gotten low approval ratings, and you didn't see Gallup come out and say we're going to stop it then. I think the methodology of polling is becoming incredibly outdated in terms of the methods that they use. And so I think for them, they do see, okay, well, the optics of this, right? If we keep coming out with these polls that show Trump's at 36%, then that's just going to fuel a very partisan narrative. And it will seem like we are no longer nonpartisan if we keep putting out these polls.
Isn't that weird? Isn't that crazy? Like that they would stop putting it out because it might hurt somebody's feelings?
I think you guys are giving them too much credit. I think they looked at the bottom line of how much they're spending on this and how much it generates in income, and decided that it wasn't a good business decision to continue to do it.
That's a fair point to make, because what I've also noticed is that they've stopped doing the monthly tracking of partisan affiliation. They just now do it yearly. They just do the annual, here's how party affiliation has shifted, which is how we got our more recent report about the 47% of Americans now self-identify as independent. They used to do this monthly. They no longer do that. So I agree, Chad. I think there is something to say about, they're looking at their bottom line and they're seeing that things are just costing them way too much money. And they probably, I have to imagine, Gallup is a organization that is struggling to keep their finances at this point.
Well, everybody, it's my news, all this kind of stuff is tough.
But like Polly Markets and Kalshi, those are right.
Could they be
making
expecting a future hit to their bottom line in terms of legal fees because of a lawsuit? Do you think that could be? Is there something being threatened in the background that we don't?
It's pretty tough. I mean, other than that, what was that one poll at the end that had I forget which state it was and what poll, but
it was Iowa.
Trump was like, I'm going to sue. Oh, yeah. It was like that poll that was so off, and Trump was like, I'm suing you because But I don't know.
And it was by a very famous, renowned pollster who had been right all the time.
To be fair, she was way off. It wasn't even close.
I think she ended up
I don't think she's going to do much more polling after that. But we do.
We have been conducting our poll of California voters, and so far it's going pretty well. We've got over 1,000, over 1,500 responses, I think.
And so to put this in perspective, a lot of these polls, like Emerson just came out with one that's actually pretty good, and they weight it just like you do, right? Where they oversample and weight it down, right? Where a lot of the traditional pollsters, and I think why they're getting this stuff so wrong, they're like, oh, we need 17 people with blonde hair, 32 that are age, right? And then they go and they find that number of people, and they go and they have sample size as low as 300, right?
Yeah, that's very low.
The poll that you're doing today, Ethan, and that we just published, like, one, we're doing the weighting just like Emerson. We're verifying them, double verifying them back to the voter file. We know they're registered voters.
Good.
But we're sampling like 1,500, right?
Yep. And then we can, we aren't eliminating any results. We're weighting it based off of, we're extrapolating out to how the actual makeup of the voter,
which gives you much, much better crosstabs, which, the other thing Ethan's leading up on the back end, there's a lot of stuff going on the back end on the website. And at some point, we may even have a membership feature where you could take a look at these.
That's right.
The last poll we did, the deep dives on the crosstabs are incredible. You go
interesting.
look. First of all, people always want to debate about, who really are independents. I believe we are the first organization that can prove it's almost an even split. It's like 32% say if I had to choose a party, it would be Republican. 32% say if I had to choose a party, it would be Democrat. And 32% said if I had to choose a party, I would
I would
fall on the ground, roll up in a ball, and tell you, I don't want to live anymore.
No, but it really does. It shows. I mean, because if you look at you take the independents, all the independents, and you sort them into, okay, who trusts the Democratic Party? You look at that, it's almost exactly the same voting behavior as actual registered Democrats.
That's what I mean.
And then you look at the Republicans, almost the exact same. But then when you look at the neither party people, it's actually a completely different.
It's completely different. But I'm saying that's like how you can verify this is legit.
Yes,
because you look at the crosstabs and you go on issue by issue, and it's clear as day. It's like, and it's funny because they follow the trend of the party, but not with the same intensity as the party, right?
Yes, that's key to this whole thing. Is it's not just about preference; it's about intensity.
It's about intensity.
Yes.
They're just not as intense about this stuff as everything. It's like, oh wait, but I mean, I could understand that this isn't such a black and white issue.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Well, it's I mean, you take any issue about that, and they like immigration, for instance. You have a lot of independents that think, you have to get out, violent criminals and all the bad people.
Actually, where I'm at on that issue, you want to know where I'm at on that issue?
Where
Sean?
are you at with that issue?
Everybody's been talking about building a wall. If we build a dome, that would be
the golden
even
dome,
more effective.
The big beautiful dome.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. People can just get over a wall. Why don't we just build a dome?
like the Simpsons movie. It worked great in that one. Yeah.
Perfect.
For those of you that's a joke. I was trying to be funny. Every once in a while, I try to be funny.
Well, thanks for all of your humor today, Chad. It's really lovely to see you. We can wrap up now if you guys want. Is anything else that we have to say?
Karen does not like my humor.
Yeah, we've heard enough.
I
of these
love your
jokes.
humor. I'm in such a good mood being in California. Like nothing you could say could take a smile off my face. I can't wait to see you for the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes premiere.
That's right.
That's on Friday, right at the Midway. In San
And
Diego?
I got the invite.
All right.
Yeah.
I actually have some Killer Tomato shoes that were delivered yesterday. Believe it or not, they're Attack of the Killer Tomato shoes.
That's so awesome.
Check out Bull's
I want to see you in the shoes and the coat.
I'm wearing it. I'm gonna walk around with a Sharpie and ask everybody, all the actors and actresses and directors, to sign my shirt, my Killer Tomatoes jacket.
I know a lot of people are
Collector's
really
item.
hoping for an expansion of this movie in terms of where it's being delivered, because I know a lot of people who love the classic Attack of the Killer Tomatoes movie. Just talking to friends the other day who were referencing Return, the second movie.
Admittedly, that did have George Clooney.
It did have
That's
George
right.
Clooney, but it also had, in my opinion, one of the best product placement scene in movies.
It is pretty. I would say it's pretty. Well, I had to make one more comment though. Because people you ask me, "Are you excited for Friday?" I go, "Look, I think we'll know by the end of the night if we need to call up and just be like, wow, we just blew a lot of money making a movie, or we'll go, oh, people actually liked it and we got something here. So,
pressure cooker moment.
It is a pressure cooker moment. So,
there we go.
I mean, at the end of the day, I got to obviously give my father credit. He and John DeBello and Costa Dillon are all friends. They're still friends.
From 1970s, like right 1978.
It was a concept they started in high school. They won a competition, and then college they ended up making this stupid movie, and it became a hit. But what grounds it at the end of the day is like there's a lot of politics and stuff involved, but there's no political commentary. Right? It's just, look, it's absurd. There's fear and stuff. But I hope what people get out of it is like, we can just have fun. Like, we talk pretty heavy politics and stuff on here. It's like, we're not trying to convince you of a position, not trying to convince you. Just let everybody smile a little bit and laugh at ourselves. Right? I hope that's what people get out of it.
Oh, me too.
No, I think that's what a lot of people are looking for right now too. Just a little bit of levity in this very stressful and anxiety-ridden environment that we live in. So,
well, thank you, everybody. As always, find us on social media. Just type in Independent Voter, and you should find us. Read the news at ivn.us. You can visit Independent Voter Project if you are trying to get rid of some money. That would be nice. And come back next time. Lena's telling me. Yep, wrap it up. Lena is our producer. She's behind the scenes, and
thank you, Lena, for all of your support.
She's the one that gives us the evil eye. Like, God, you guys are boring. Wrap it up.
That's right.
All right.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Signing off.
See you next week.
This is the Independent Voter Podcast, sponsored by the Independent Voter Project and produced by OLAS Media. Remember, you can always find the Independent Voter Podcast or the How It Really Works series at ivn.us. Follow and subscribe at olasmedia.com.
OLAS Media.